howdy, welcome to my channel. Today I will be walking you through how I created this card right here, doing a bit of no-line coloring without any no-line coloring ink, along with using some dewdrops and some liquid applique. So set a spell, kick your shoes off, and let's begin. So for today's card, we are using the Create and Inkspire September card kit. This is the stamp set. It also comes with a sentiment stamp set. We're going to create a little scene using some of the stamps here. To create our scene, we're going to be using the We Are Precision Press Advanced, along with some, well, I'm going to actually do a no line color effect on the objects. So the no line color effect is going to be done using linen ink. It's by Close to My Heart, but you could really use any light colored ink you have at home. You may be able to see that there is also a sentiment stamp on this particular board right here, and that's okay because we only need to use the linen ink over the pumpkin and the witch's hat. As for the sentiment, we will do that in a minute once we're done with our pumpkin and hat. So whenever I stamp, I just like to bring in a microfiber cloth. That way it helps me make sure that I apply some nice even pressure. Looks like we're going to have to stamp that one more time. And if you're a regular viewer of my channel, you may be wondering, why am I using the precision press? It's because I find that the precision press works best for pieces that I am layering, because I do like to work with just the card front rather than a lot of little pieces. Not that I haven't done that, but in general I like to do it this way. So that's why we're using the Precision Press Advanced today. And our hat seems to be good, but our pumpkin seems to be feeling a little like, I want to be alone. So we're going to remove our witch's hat, and we will leave our pumpkin in place and just re-ink our pumpkin so that it works on our piece. Okay, I think that is much better. And I'm not going to worry about re-inking it because it's a nice even pressure. It's just one end is a little darker because it's been stamped a couple more times than the other end. I have already cut out some masks for those pieces. I used some Post-it super sticky. I feel like when you're trying to just do a very light, simple, quick stamped image, it's a good supply to have on hand. And we are just placing our pumpkin mask over the pumpkin. Then we do the same thing with our witch's hat. I think you could totally use this pumpkin for a fall card if you just didn't ink up the face. Oh, we need to stamp our sentiment. For that, we're going to use some VersaFine Clair Nocturne. I feel like this ink leaves a very good print, so that's why we're going to use this one today. Yeah, that looks really nice. So the sentiment we stamped is have a Witchin good Halloween. This set has some other great sentiments with it, and both the element pieces and the sentiment come in the Create and Inkspire September card kit. Now, I didn't use their cardstock, but they do actually provide you with some nice cardstock in the kit. Now, all we need to do is bring in some more of the stamps. So I've got the Cauldron right here. We're going to ink that with the linen as well. Now, as far as this Cauldron goes, I actually think it would make a really good pot of gold at the end of the rainbow stamp. So that would take it into March, or with any rainbow cards you're making that have a little rainbow at the end. Because you could totally color the little circles that are in here gold, and yeah, that would be perfect. We have a mask cut out for that piece as well, so we're just going to place that right here, and then we're going to stamp the broom. Now, I think the broom and the witch's hat are probably the only things that you couldn't use in the creation of another card style. But this stamp set also happens to have this little candle, and I think you could totally use this candle for an anniversary or Valentine's Day or Christmas. So remember, when you're buying a stamp set or a card kit, to look at the stamps that are in there and see, is this stamp set going to be used just for this one season, or is this something I can use year-round? I think if it's something you can use year-round, then it's definitely an investment, and you should definitely take advantage of that if it's within your price range. Now we just have to stamp the broomstick. Then we just apply pressure. Okay, and now that we're done with that, I'm going to mask the broomstick as well. That's because I am going to create a scene for behind these pieces. I say behind, even though clearly it's all on one single cardstock piece, but it will give the illusion of being behind. So now that that's done, I'm going to remove our cardstock piece from our precision press. Since we have our objects stamped and masked, I'm going to bring in some stencils. These are homemade stencils. One is going to be grass and one's going to be clouds. And I'm going to create the background now using these stencils. So we're going to start out with the grass, and we're going to use the color Forest Moss. It's a Tim Holtz Distress ink, and we're going to bring in a makeup brush to help us apply the Forest Moss. Ooh, that's probably okay. It wasn't purposeful, but that's probably just fine that we have some forest moss in our sky right now. Yep. So now we're going to move that, and for where our cloud is going to be, we are going to, so we're going to bring in the chip Sapphire, and we're going to see what that's going to do for our clouds, because, well, I can't think of anything else to do to help us out right now. And we're going to take a bit of sponge to help us create our clouds, our cloud formation with our stencil. You can still see our sentiment in there, so that's good. We want to make sure you can still see our sentiment. Oh yeah, that seems to hide it pretty well actually, so that you don't really see where the green is, at least in some of these areas. So I don't think anyone would actually notice too much that there is any green, at least in this corner. So we're going to try to work with that right here as well, because yeah, we're trying to hide the green. Okay, so now we can spritz some water over our piece just so we can activate the ink, since it is distress ink. So we're just going to set that aside for a bit, and yeah. So I think that looks pretty nice actually. So now we can just remove that. We can just remove our little masks using our Spellbinder's Tool-in-One. And you can just place them over the coordinating stamps and reuse them later. Okay, so now that our water droplets have dried on our cardstock, we just need to go in on the areas that we stamped and we need to color them. So I've pulled a couple of colors. So we're going to start out with NG2. This is an Ohuhu art marker. And we're going to start with that for our hat, our witch's hat. In order for us to finish coloring with the NG2, I'm going to bring in the NG6, and we're going to go over those areas that just received the NG2. We are trying to go for a no line coloring technique. So now I'm going to go back over that area with the NG2. Okay, now that I've got the NG2 on right there, I'm going in with the NG4. There you go. There is our witch's hat. And now we're going to do the Cauldron. We're going to use Spectrum Noir, brown gray. We're using the Spectrum Noir TriBlend in the brown gray, and we're also going to use the Spectrum Noir Illustrator in the brown gray. So for the Cauldron, we're going to start out by tracing with the Illustrator in Brown Gray 6, so BG6. I'm going to use the fine tip for that. Now we're going to go in with the Brown Gray Spectrum Noir in the light color and build up from there. Okay, so there is the light color. Now we're going to go in with the mid-tone color. Okay, so now we're going to go in with the dark color. Now there are bubbles here in our cauldron, and it's kind of like basically some foam, or so it makes me think of this line. I think it's from Shakespeare. Double, double, toil and trouble, cauldron. I can't remember the rest of it. But so that's what that reminds me of. And we're going to color that, but we're going to save that for the very last because we're going to do something in addition to coloring it. What we can color now is, so we have just a few more spots left. We have the pumpkin left, and the witch's hat has a sash around it, and we have our broomstick, and of course we have our little bubbles. So I'm going to finish, I'm going to finish up the witch's hat. I'm going to use the colors Spectrum Noir TriBlend in purple, and I'm going to use the dark and the mid tone of this marker, and I'm also going to bring in this Copic marker and bring in the color V06, which is lavender. Now, Spectrum Noir does have a lavender, but it is much darker than their purple, and I don't consider it complementary to the Copic V06, which is why I'm going to use the Spectrum Noir purple. For the buckle, I'm not going to trace around it like I have been with the rest of the portions of the hat or the cauldron, but I'm just going to color that. But first, I need to bring in the Copic lavender color. Now I'm going to use the fine tip on this, and I'm not going to do it in the inside of the buckle, because for that I'm going to go bring in the mid-tone of the purple. Now we have the buckle. For the buckle, I am going to bring in a Prismacolor pencil, a Prismacolor Premier pencil in the color bronze. And we're just going to color that. And right here, we're not even going to blend the color. We're just going to color it in. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to do our pumpkin. So for our pumpkin, we are bringing in Spectrum Noir TriBlend Marker Orange Blend. And we're going to start out with the darkest shade. Now remember, we're doing this because we're going for a no-line colored look. And I don't actually have any no-line color ink pads. So if you're like me and you don't have the ink pads either, as long as you go in with a very light color for your stamping, then you can bring in the darker colors to go on top of it, and I think it still creates that same effect. It's just you didn't have to worry about having that ink pad. Okay, so we just did the mid-tone on these two sections right here that are just, they're not part of the main portion of the pumpkin, they're just part of the upper portion of our pumpkin. So we're going to bring in our ShinHan TouchTwin marker in the color YR24, which is Marigold. Now that's going to be our lightest color. So there is our pumpkin, more colored, and we're going to bring in the mid-tone from the Spectrum Noir TriBlend. Okay, so now we're going to bring in the light color, the light shade. And pumpkins are kind of hard. I think the pumpkin's probably going to be a little bit trickier than the hat or the cauldron was, only because, well, we're really supposed to try to make the pumpkin look like it's a circle, since that's basically what I would consider the shape. So for our carved pumpkin, we are going to bring in the color, the Spectrum Noir TriBlend color Light Yellow Blend, because, well, generally I think when I see carved pumpkins, I think of the lights that are going to come out of it, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, so we're going to start out with light shade of our light yellow blend. Okay, now that our pumpkin is done, we need to go in and color the stem of our pumpkin. So I'm going to start out with bringing the dark shade in, and the colors we're using for this are Spectrum Noir TriBlend in the color Dull Green. So now that we've got our broom left to color, we're going to bring in the TriBlend color Earth Brown. We're going to start off with dark, so now that we have dark on there, we're going to bring in the mid-tone color and okay, now all we need to do to finish up our cauldron. All we need to do to finish up our broomstick is we need to bring in this color, which is gold brown, and we're going to use that to help us color our bristles from our brush. Okay, so now we're going to go in with the light color, the light shade, and we're going to color inside of our brush. And now we're going to bring the mid-tone in, and we're going to, so because this is a broom, we're going to color this a little differently than we've been coloring our other objects, which, you know, they're sort of round. So we're just going to color it similar to how you would color it if it was hair. There you go, there. That is our brush. Now we need, I'm going to mount our card front onto our card base now, and then I'm going to take care of those little bubbles that are in our cauldron. We're going to bring in our stamping platform, and we're going to also bring in some tear tape. So the tear tape is going to help us attach the card front to the card base. And one of the reasons we're using this is because it's a bit warped, and that's because of the distress ink and then spritzing it. But the tear tape will help us out to even it back, even this piece back out. So I don't know if y'all are regular viewers of my channel or not, but I do have a haunted Halloween house that I created. I paper crafted it. So there is a video on my channel all about that, and I basically walk you through my entire process of creating that house, and it is a little spooky. There is a hop that I participated in for that as part of the creation of that house. Here's our little card. Now we need to take care of these little bubble, all this bubbliness that's happening in our cauldron. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring in some dewdrops. I'm going to bring in the colors that I already picked out, which are the purple and the orange. Now, that's just the way I see them, but there might be a different name associated with them in the description box below, because I can't recall what the Robin's Nest calls these specific colors. So I placed some dewdrops inside of this jewelry tray, and we just need to grab our little jewel picker, and so we're just going to use some liquid glass to help us attach the dewdrops to our little cauldron. Yeah, that'll work. And we're going to kind of scatter them about, because there are quite a number of little bubbles there. Now, part of why we did some no-line coloring for this is because not all of the dewdrops are exactly the same size as the bubbles in our cauldron, but okay, so you can probably tell that there's going to be some empty space in here, and what we're going to do for that is we're just going to bring in our pencil and sort of doodle in there a little to help us hide just how much is missing. And we're going to bring in some more of these orange ones because I don't have as many of them, not the circular shaped ones as I was trying to take out. So nope. Okay, there are no large orange circles, at least not in the bottle I have. I don't know if that's going to be true of the bottle that you guys might get, but it's definitely true of the bottle that I received. Okay, there's that. Along with our soldering mat, we're going to bring in some liquid applique. So we are bringing in our liquid applique, and we are just going to scatter that around our cauldron in these little empty spots right here. And if you haven't visited my channel before, you might not know what we're actually going to be using the liquid applique for. So we just need to bring in our heat embossing gun. And in those little areas where we placed the liquid applique, what happened was we got some of this bubble over here. And I'm actually going to kind of add something more to our piece so that it looks really cool. And we're going to heat this up right there like that. So that looks like we have foam in our little cauldron, and our cauldron is spilling over. So now we have those little empty spots that we couldn't fill with our dewdrops. Those are filled in with our liquid applique. If you can't find liquid applique, you can always use snow marker because, well, it's made by the same company and they basically do the same thing. They're basically both for working on t-shirts and they both puff up. So yeah, they're pretty much the same thing. So that is our card for the day. I think it turned out really nice. I would like to thank y'all for sticking with me to the end of this video. If you like what you saw, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any comments about how this technique went, how you feel about it, what type of no-line ink you guys use, leave that in the comment section down below. And I would love if you would click the subscribe button. So I hope y'all stay safe, stay healthy, stay crafty. Bye y'all.